Good morning, everybody. I hope everybody's well this morning if you're up. Because when I tell y'all, I too will still sleep because I've got about an hour left anyway before it's time for me to get up for work. But I actually had woke up and kind of rolled over and looked at my phone, and one of my sweet YouTube viewers commented on an older video that I did and commented on the fact that while I was making a video, someone had walked into the space that I was making a video in um, and said that they loved how I kept going even when that man walked in because they would have stopped. And so I responded and was just explaining to them how um, it's not us that makes us strong. Like, it's so funny because naturally I actually am very timid. Like, I'm bold but I'm timid, and I'm about to explain what that means. So my whole life I have always dealt with stage fright, like really, really bad. I mean, to the point to where Easter plays were not my favorite. School plays were not my favorite because I knew that as long as I was behind the scenes, I was good. But as soon as I stepped on that stage, it was over and done. And so it's so it's a prime example of how God steps in the areas that we're weak in. And so when we hear 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 9, my grace is sufficient for you, for in your weakness, then are you strong. We think that it means physical strength, and it does, but it also has other meanings. And my favorite part about that is that it also means that in the areas that we're weak in, God will step in and make us strong. His strength in us is sufficient. His grace and his strength in us is sufficient. And so where we're weak, he will step in and make us strong. So that means, like, areas in your life that you're weak in and that you can't in your own flesh be strong enough to handle, his sufficient grace will step in and it will make you strong in that area. So speaking is an area where on the back end, like in my flesh, in my own strength, I have always struggled with public speaking. I speak well, but I am very like nervous about it. But when God has something for me to say, he steps in and he makes me strong. His sufficient grace makes me strong in those areas. So people who know me be like, girl, you be so powerful in your videos. But I done known you since we was 5, 6, 7 years old. We grew up in church together. Where you get that strength from? And I'm like, baby, that's not me. That is the sufficient grace of God that steps in and makes me strong in the areas that I'm weak in. So it also does that for you physically, but it does that for you when you face fear and in your own strength and in your own mind, you're struggling to overcome it. The sufficient grace, God said, my grace is sufficient for you. For in your weakness, then are you made strong. In our weakness, the power of God is perfected in us. So his strength steps in and we take a back seat and he works in us, and his sufficient grace, his power, his strength, his ability to go beyond our limits. That is what steps in when we have an area of struggle that we cannot seem to overcome. And remember that in Joshua chapter 1, I believe it's verse 9, God tells Joshua over and over again, be strong and courageous. Have I not commanded you to be strong and courageous? For in your weakness, then am I made strong, is basically what he was telling Joshua. He was telling him, listen, you may be afraid, but I've told you to be strong and courageous because I am with you. And the point of us needing to know that God is with us is because that confidence that we have in him and in his ability to do in us what he needs to do, to get us where we're going, to make us strong when we are weak, that right there, that is why we have to be strong and courageous. Because naturally, I'm not, this is not me. Moses had a stuttering problem, but God sent him anyway. Joshua was afraid, but God sent him anyway. Gideon did not think he was sufficient, but God sent him anyway. And we see these examples where people in the Bible had weaknesses, but they went on to accomplish great things. And it's because God was with them. So I just wanted to share that word and let you know that our boldness and our confidence doesn't come from us. It comes from God at work in us. And that's why you can see people that struggle in their own flesh to do things, and then they step up on stage or they get on the microphone or they start singing or writing or speaking or whatever, and they seem like a totally different person. And it's because God at work on the inside of them is what's making them strong and courageous and able to surpass their own human limits. So I hope that encourages y'all. I love you so much, and I will see you later.